where best friends and next-door neighbors, Willow and Lillian, spill the tea on murder, mysteries, and other things that go bump in the night. So get your favorite teacup ready, and let's get into it. Welcome to Cruelty Podcast. This is Lillian. With me finally again is Willow.
Hi.
Hi.
I missed y'all.
Yes, indeed. No longer a plague rat, so you may return.
Yes.
And of course, this month's theme is Held Captive, which I announced on the last Maris Monday.
Oh, good.
Yes. The Big Hairy Hands of Dartmoor. I don't know. But that's what you're missing. Anyway, I'd like to get right into it today. I have nothing to add. Life's good. Yeah, life's good,
I guess. So the first case in Captivity Month, or Held Captive Month, is the Fidel Castro kidnapping. And I wanted to do this in a two-parter because his first victim, the person that nobody really thinks about or talks about when they think of this case, was his wife long before any of the kidnappings. And I think possibly what led to the kidnappings, and if anything could have been done during this case,
would have been then.
Yeah. And maybe if something would have been done for her, those girls would later never have gotten kidnapped. So I kind of wanted to just highlight her in her own episode and then talk about, the main kidnappings in the next episode. So this is going to be a two-part conversation. But,
let's go.
Yeah. So, this case, I know a lot of people know about it. I know it really hit the media pretty hard. And this case has always really stuck with me. It was a case that I was going to originally do for Survivor Month, and then I was going to do for House of Horrors Month because it is the Cleveland House of Horrors. But I thought that it should really kind of have its own month because I really wanted to just really get into what it felt like to be held captive. Because it's really easy to just tell a story about it. But I feel like if we have multiple stories under this similar theme, we can kind of get a better idea.
And what trigger warning should we observe for this particular episode?
I'm glad you asked because I almost forgot about that. But yes, very heavy trigger warnings for domestic violence, domestic abuse, assault, sexual assault, especially to children and minors. Just a whole bunch of all the trigger warnings pretty much.
Well, yeah, I wanted to ask about child sexual assault because I know some people can absolutely not listen to that. Totally understand. Yeah. As a child sexual assault survivor myself. Yeah. So please heed these warnings because we're going to get into it right now.
Yeah. And the domestic violence is pretty triggering too. So just be aware of that in this episode and the next one. So, this case ended up being one of those really, really popular cases that really hit the news, that certain aspects of the case ended up overshadowing a lot of other aspects, if that makes sense.
Yes.
Especially when we talk about the media and I remember the guy that was interviewed outside of the house when the girls were rescued, he became a meme and a lot of time, it's honestly, it's good for publicity to get these stories out there, but honestly, it kind of ends up becoming a caricature. And if that makes sense,
it gets into the ethics of true crime as entertainment.
Right.
And while I do think there's something to be said, you got to toe the line. And there's a certain point where it becomes exploitive.
Right.
And I think that's definitely what happened in this case, especially with the victims and the survivors afterwards.
Mm-hmm. The Dr. Phil episode came out.
Barf.
Yeah. But Phil. It was a good chance for Michelle, and we'll get into it on the other episode. But it was a good chance for her to tell her story.
I agree with that.
60 Minutes did another one. But nobody really ever talked about his wife, his common law wife, and the mother of his children, Grimilda Figueroa. And she would be his first victim, his first person that he would hold hostage and keep captive. And she's kind of like the main voice that really gets silenced in this story. So Grimilda ended up meeting Ariel Castro when his family moved to the house across the street in the 1980s. Ariel Castro, he was actually born in Puerto Rico to parents Pedro Castro and Lillian Rodriguez. His father, Pedro, cheated on his mother with another villager and began this secret relationship, and together they ended up having like 4 children. So he had 3 children with his wife, and then he had another complete different family of 4 children.
I don't know how dudes do that.
On an island. You know what I mean? Like,
where are you going to run, man?
Yeah. Yeah. And so whenever Lillian found out, it was basically over at that point. He chose his other family, and she ended up having to move to the mainland United States in order to look for work, and kind of like restart her life.
Yeah, Lillian to get things done.
Oh, she's not a good...
No, she's a bad Lillian.
I'm just going to refer to her. I actually went through my notes before I came over here. I forgot a couple parts, but I started to try to refer to her as just his mother because I didn't want to say Lillian because...
Don't tarnish the name,
no,
you know. Yes.
No, she doesn't deserve the title. But yeah, she ended up moving to the mainland, and the kids were left with their grandmother in Puerto Rico. And it was just kind of like nobody really had the time to watch the children. Ariel Castro would end up growing very resentful of his mother for leaving. There was no way that he could possibly understand that she was going to get a job. You know what I mean? All he knew was that she left, and that's all he knew. Later in an interview, trigger warning, he said that while all the adults were not paying attention to him, at around the age of 5, he started getting sexually assaulted by a 9-year-old boy in the area. And it's really unclear for how long the abuse happened, but it was repetitive. And he said later on, quote, "People who are abused keep quiet. So I did." And I feel like, this is just me, but after doing a lot of the research, I feel like a lot of the people in the household that he potentially abused probably had carried that philosophy and did not speak up, because there was a lot of things that happened later on that pointed in the direction of, his children being abused in various ways. And none of them ever said anything, but they reacted in ways that people do when they're abused. So I'm wondering if maybe he carried that on. Obviously, we'll never know, but you'll see later what I mean. But anyways, that ended up being his philosophy. He didn't tell anybody about the abuse. He kept it quiet, and that's kind of how he would rule his household later on. His mother, after she moved to the United States, she did get a job. She did, get a house. And when it was time for her children to move back, they were literally just shipped like cargo to the mainland, to Pennsylvania.
That's fucked.
Yeah, he was 6.
I bet that was scary.
Yeah, absolutely. It was 1966. He was 6 years old. And at that point, he had already lived through so much that by the time he finally got to his mother, he had already built up all this resentment and everything. He finally gets to what he thinks is what he wants this whole time. He gets home and into his mother's arms, and he just ends up coming home to abuse. She starts verbally and physically abusing her children. She'd beat the children with her hands, belts, sticks, anything that she could grab and find. It was constant violence and chaos within the household. One thing that Ariel could find that would bring him peace was a guitar that his uncle Julio Castro gave him. He started getting really serious about music. He taught himself and got really into it, and that would be kind of his escape. He started playing music at a very young age, and apparently he was really good. He ended up moving on to the bass and ended up playing the bass in a lot of bands later on. He was like, somebody said later that later on in his career that he was like one of the top 3 bass players in all of Cleveland. Like he was highly sought after in the music world. Yeah. In 1968, his father Pedro moved his family to Cleveland, and they opened a few small businesses, a used car lot, a grocery store, a Latino record shop. And in 1970, when Ariel was 10, Ariel's mother decided to finally move her family up to Cleveland to be closer to their father's family. So kind of joined the two families. They didn't live in the same roof, but they moved to the same town to get closer to each other. Obviously, their parents weren't going to get along, but they were like, well, you know, there's no point that our children shouldn't know each other. So they kind of joined families at that point. But Ariel Castro wouldn't really get his, like, attention that he was seeking throughout life until he got to high school. He actually became a very popular kid in high school. He had tons of friends. He started a band in high school, and by the time he graduated high school, he was able to do music full time. So he basically left high school and had a full-time gig playing music. And he was a huge part of his community. He played at, you know, all the local bars and cantinas, and he was super popular, super well known in the area. And by the 80s, he's about 20 years old. He's a popular Latin musician, and he's eyeing this girl across the street. She's Grimilda, and she is 17 years old. And she lived with her parents and 5 siblings. And from all I could tell, her family was very good to her, and they loved her very much. And when Ariel finally got to talking to her, they hit it off. Like, they hit it off pretty much instantly. And her parents raved about how nice he was to her.
Boy, that's how they always are before they get you behind closed doors.
It's so scary knowing what happens next. Like, it's scary to just say that because I know what he ends up doing to her.
Man, I have lived that.
I know, I know. Me too. Absolutely.
People would always say, oh, but he was so nice. I don't believe he'd say that to you or do that to you.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Yes. I'm glad you really hit on that, because this is kind of the theme of this story, is that Ariel Castro is such a nice guy and he's so cool.
Yeah, just so nice.
Yeah.
We could never imagine, etc.
Yeah. And especially her family, you know, they were relieved that such a nice guy came to swoop their daughter off her feet, that he was playing music for her and he was going to take care of her, and they didn't have to worry about her. Within a few months of dating, Nilda is what they called her. Grimilda is Nilda. Within a few months of dating, Nilda was pregnant. By September of 1981, she gave birth to their first child, Ariel Jr., and pretty much right away, as soon as he became a father, he became possessive and aggressive. How many times do we see this?
Yeah, it happened to me.
Yeah, literally me too.
Yeah, and you know, I also think is they throw caution to the wind as far as like birth control and trying not to get pregnant, because they know the minute they got you pregnant, they got you.
Oh, I smoked too much weed. I'm infertile. No.
Who lied?
Yeah.
Why are you lying? But it's a tactic.
It is. No, it really is.
Yeah,
it really,
sure.
really is. It's kind of that like hook, line, and sinker type thing. They hook you, and then once they have you, then.
Sorry for the woof. The whole neighborhood of dogs has gone
all
insane.
Of our dogs are barking right now. But yeah, so right away, as soon as he became a father, he became like really possessive. He would demand that Nilda bring his baby to the shows that he's playing.
Jesus fucking Christ.
I think it was so he could have eyes on them at all times.
Yes, to watch them and control them. Absolutely.
But he's playing shitty bars and like dirty
Babies don't go there.
cantinas, and there's like smoking inside. This is the 80s, you know what I mean? So yeah, he's making the baby come to these really shitty and dirty bars, and like there's music blaring. It's very loud. It's very uncomfortable for a newborn to be in. There's smoking. It's just
not where you bring a baby.
It's not an environment for a newborn. And if she didn't do as he told her to, he'd get physical. The beatings pretty much began right away as soon as the child was first born. And it would literally be over anything. Anything.
See, again, I point out, like, once they have you in a vulnerable position as being a new mom, That just shows, to me, that just shows, because they'll try and tell you, hey, I just lost my temper. I wasn't in control.
Right.
Absolutely in control.
Yeah.
This is calculated.
Yeah.
Obviously.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Especially with this guy. This is very calculated.
He seems like a very calculated guy.
Mm-hmm. She got pregnant with their second child, Angie, in 1982. She was so sick with child that one day she happened to not have the kitchen as clean as he wanted it when he wanted her to. And so he punched her in the face and knocked out her 2 front teeth.
What a piece of shit.
While she's pregnant. Now, most of the beatings so far up until this point, he's gotten away with them because they're bruises and minor injuries that she has also gotten really good at makeup and covering them up. It just breaks my heart.
Lady has
breaks
to do
my
that.
fucking heart because I understand what that's like.
Yeah.
And, my brain instantly goes to, oh yeah, color correcting.
Uh-huh.
But this one, this is medical attention. We're now crossing the line from,
Yes.
oh, I can get away with this, I can cover this up, to, oh, I need medical attention. And this is the first time that he literally holds her captive. He won't let her leave to go get medical attention until she promises. And he is, more than aware and justified that he once he knows that she will not go tell them what really happened. And once he's satisfied with that, she has to promise over and over again, then he will take her to the hospital.
So fucked.
This is the first time, but this is across the board any time that she is taken to the hospital for any of the injuries that he inflicts on her, which are many, too many to list individually. Every single time he literally will not let her leave until she promises. And this is like an amount of time that could possibly be life-threatening in a lot of situations. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
30 minutes to an hour sometimes, just trying to get her to promise in the way that satisfies him. It's disgusting.
I'm sure she's terrified the entire time.
Absolutely. And, a lot of times bleeding out or with broken bones or with a broken jaw, having to say, yes, I promise.
It's hard.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
But that's just another extent to his abuse, is that, overly, I need you to say these things that I want you to say.
I really experienced a lot of that, the saying things in the right way.
Yeah.
And, I like to be transparent. I was never, punched, but I was, restrained to where I couldn't leave or enter a room I wanted to. I did get choked. I got pushed down, and a lot of threats, especially involving the children. And I'm sure he did that too. I have no doubt.
Oh, absolutely. It was constantly threatening the children.
But it's just the juxtaposition of who this person was versus when I had kids.
Right.
Just a sweet, charming, funny, had friends.
The whole, community
everybody liked
backed
him.
him.
Yeah, everybody liked him, thought he was a nice kid.
Right.
And then the minute I pop out one, and it was just relentless.
Yeah.
Relentless.
Because they have you.
It was Jekyll and Hyde. I didn't know that person. That wasn't the person I married.
Right.
And, that's what a lot of domestic violence survivors.
Most of them are, yeah.
Yeah, struggle with is they remember the person they met and they keep wondering when will they come back.
Right.
And what they don't realize and what I didn't realize is that it's a mask.
Yeah.
And that person never existed. And what I am seeing, the abuse, is the real person.
Right.
And I was manipulated.
Right. I still catch myself to this day. And I hate my abuser.
Oh, he sucks.
You know what I mean? And I still catch myself to this day because, we were quote unquote high school sweethearts. I catch myself missing that kid that I knew once.
The sweet kid, the funny kid.
Yeah, the kid I had the first times with. The first time to go do this or to go do that. Do crazy shit together.
The cute things.
The things that were projected. And that's really what gets us. That's
for me. It was after my car accident. He took care of me the whole time and was the best caretaker until I had kids. And then he had me, and I couldn't escape.
That's so.
He used the kids to hold me hostage, which is why this fits the theme. By the way,
absolutely. One time, she had a gaping head wound that required stitches, and he basically held her hostage until she convinced him that she wouldn't say anything to the medical authorities over that as well. And like, head wounds. Mm-hmm. I know you know that. We know that you know that I know that we both had some serious head wounds in our lives. And, that's where you bleed the most. And so she's sitting there for a long period of time.
Just bleeding.
She required a lot of stitches. And I think it was like 30 to 35 stitches on her head. And she's just having to sit there bleeding out.
And before we say, why didn't she just leave? You be in your early 20s with no money, and your family loves your spouse. They love them. They're so great. Have some babies, and you tell me how anxious you are to leave.
Right.
Oh, by the way, your self-esteem has been eroded down to absolutely fucking nothing. Mm-hmm. And you believe you deserve this on top of it.
Well, and meanwhile, they're not in, the quote unquote house of horrors yet. Right now, they are either staying at, Grimilda's family's house, his family's house. Sometimes they have an apartment. Sometimes they share that apartment with other family members. Family members are in and out all the time.
And they're not going to believe her. He's never going to do it where they see it.
No. And if they do see like bruising or anything like that, a lot of times, especially in these communities, it's a lot of like, well, we're going to leave the, marital affairs where marital affairs
That's none of our
are.
Business.
Yes. And a lot of times you have to understand in certain cultures and impoverished communities, especially those things when they go hand in hand. If you were to get into somebody else's business, I'm not saying that this is right or wrong here. I'm just saying that this is a point of view that a lot of people have, is if they were to step in these types of situations and they would be wrong, or maybe not have the full story.
Someone might get deported.
Then they're taking the family's moneymaker. Then that whole family is getting split up. Then that family, they're going to lose their house. They're going to lose each other. Those kids are going to go into the system. So really, people have to be careful of where their damage.
Y'all, when you're a minority and you live in an area where that is heavily policed on top of being really poor, you ain't telling the police jack fucking shit.
Yes.
So just keep all of that in mind before you make
I really
judgments.
don't want to hold any judgments on anyone in this story. It was really hard for me to hear that a neighbor across the street from the House of Horrors saw countless abuse and was even there for Nilda and held Nilda in her arms while she was bleeding and saw things but never said anything. Part of me, of course, that human part of me is going to be like,
what the fuck's wrong with you? Why didn't you say something?
But she is an elderly immigrant woman that, I can't place judgment because I don't know where she's been and I don't know, what her frame of reference is. So,
and then when you have the victim begging you not
because
to
at the
tell,
end of the day, where is the judgment really supposed to go? The man who's laying his hands.
Yeah.
That's
who's we judging today. Yeah. And I'll tell you this too. If you're a woman in a domestic violence situation, CPS is sure anxious to take your fucking babies from you.
Right.
So, nobody trusts.
And we talk about that in the next episode heavily, because it is a big part of it. But you're absolutely right.
Yeah.
You're absolutely right. And it is like,
because if you don't leave immediately after you report the abuse, they will take your children away if you are hit again.
Absolutely.
And you will get charged with a crime.
It's terrifying.
So they're not good victims advocates, is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
These people have nowhere to go.
Yeah. It's a vicious cycle. And that's why it's called a cycle of abuse, because it's really hard to get out of if possible at all.
Yeah, it's a miracle I got out.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, she's in and out of these hospitals and people are seeing her frequently with injuries. Like the whole hospital staff is like watching this woman come in pregnant, with knocked out teeth and, gaping head wounds and broken
That's
jaws.
who should have said something and done something, by the way.
Yeah. There was no files charged because Nilda wouldn't press the charges. And I really don't understand why we can't do something.
Why can't independent witnesses press charges?
Why?
Yeah, why?
If you see it, why can't we say it? Like, why can't the state
press charges
on a man clearly committing
beating
a
his
crime?
Wife. Yeah.
Like...
Yeah, it's baffling to me.
It really is. And it's
why-
mostly in domestic abuse situations that you see this. It's very specifically domestic. When it's outside, you know, some guy robs a bank and the bank doesn't want to press charges.
The
Like, I'm
state
still
press
going to
charges.
get it, you know?
The state presses charges.
Yes.
Well, and you know, ask yourself this, like, well, why wouldn't she? Because if those charges don't stick and he gets out, he will kill her and her babies.
If it's not murder, he doesn't get to stay in jail.
No. Y'all, so he has access to her.
Yes.
Again.
Yes.
She is terrified.
Yes. If the very best outcome comes, he gets maybe a decade or two. Maybe.
And it has to, he'd have to nearly kill her.
Yeah.
Nearly.
He does.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it didn't matter.
No.
And it never will.
It never will. He doesn't get when he gets pulled over later on, when he has the girls captive and everything like that, he gets pulled over, the cop runs his license, not a single thing on his record. Not a single thing. After all of this, it's disgusting.
Well, they can have a record too, and it still won't matter. I'd like to point out from experience.
No, but still, you know what I mean?
Yeah, it just makes it that much worse. It's just that much more salt in the fucking
wound. That he could do this
wound.
much to somebody, and people who work for the system can see her.
And we just
so
gonna let it
much.
go. We won't. Isn't there should be at least, if we're not going to press charges as a state, there should at least be a system in which we can mark it down and say, pay
Like
attention.
a medical red flag.
A fucking red flag.
You know, they do it for children,
They do.
but why not for adults?
Well, fuck you. That's why.
It's very fuck you, pay me, isn't it?
Oh, yes, it is.
He'd punch her, he would drag her by the hair, throwing her onto the concrete floor, reportedly slamming her head into the wall and bashing it into a washing machine, violently getting upset over the smallest infractions, routinely sending Nilda to the hospital for concussions and broken ribs. In 1988, their daughter Emily was born, but still the beatings continued. Her first initial police report against Ariel Castro happened in 1989. Court records show that he pled no contest and was given probation.
Yeah, so she learned that pressing charges means nothing.
Does nothing but makes him angry because their daughter Arlene was born that next year in 1990. What do you think happened?
Yeah, I wondered.
I don't want to make assumptions, but
At the very least, coercion.
the evidence is there.
I'm going to tell you, not ever, wouldn't call it that, but I was definitely coerced in that relationship. Threatened.
This man's pattern of abuse is very sexually motivated and driven, and he's very sick in the mind. So, yeah. He got very mad at her when she pressed charges, and their daughter was born the next year. All of a sudden, Ariel got laid off after their daughter was born. So with no income, a newborn, and 3 other children, so 4 children total, 6 people in this house, Ariel has no job. He's got to get a job fast. So he applies as a school bus driver.
Oh, that's who I want around my kids.
That sentence just has my heart just beating so
Makes
fucking
your mouth
fast.
dry.
It really does make me so anxious. On his application, it asked what made him qualified for this position, which he had been working as a driver for another corporation, hauling things. But he was a driver, he was CDL certified. He could have said that. He could have said, well, I drive big cars.
And always have, so I know what I'm doing.
Driver. No, he said, I really enjoy working with children.
No, you fucking don't, you piece of shit.
You like touching children.
Yeah.
Disgusting piece of shit. He was hired on as a Cleveland school bus driver in 1991 and saved up for a year from that job with all of his gigs and all of his new income. He purchased the House of Horrors in 1992. It was at 2207 Seymour Avenue. He bought it from his uncle Edwin for $12,000. And
that's how we know it was a long time ago.
Yeah, I know. I was like, damn, that just
made me want to cry.
I mean, okay, so it was a 2-story house with an unfinished basement. The basement was kind of short. It wasn't like a full height room, but it was, I don't know. You could kind of walk down there. I could walk down there. But it was 4 bedrooms, 1 bath, 1,400 square foot. So there was a lot of rooms, but they were small.
Oh, fuck off. It's bigger than my house.
Right, but I mean, it's 2 stories.
Yeah,
it's a
smallish house for sure.
It was very cramped with the living situation.
I can imagine.
And this is where the terror would begin. The abuse that Ariel subjected Nilda to here in this house was even worse than ever before. Here, he threw her down the stairs multiple times. She had broken ribs, a broken nose, a dislocated shoulder. His first hostages were his wife and his children. He'd lock her in the house and not let her leave for long periods of time, like weeks on end. And then he would, let her free and then hold his children captive. Or hold his children above her, say, well, you can go out, but the children are staying with me, that kind of thing.
Yep, I went through that.
Always using the children against her.
Leverage. They're not children. They're tools of controlling the mother.
Absolutely. They're possessions.
To further abuse.
Yeah.
Use the spouse.
Absolutely.
Definitely had that on my end.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Yeah, and so she would try to leave, but he would essentially kidnap the children in return.
And no mother can leave their babies with an abusive monster.
Abuser. Mm-hmm.
I couldn't either.
It's terrifying, but I have to sometimes.
I know you do, honey.
Terrifying.
It's awful.
He left for if he left for any reason, he would set up traps around the house. He would basically booby trap like the front door and various things so that way he would know if she left or if she tried to leave. And this is something that he would just kind of build off of from this point. But he was very obsessed with that idea of like catching them. And if he ever did catch them, it was extreme retaliation in return. So it just kept them
that way.
Yeah.
Can you imagine being so paranoid
absolutely
and scared
fucking
all the
terrified.
time?
Terrified of
Jesus.
everything. Really don't know if anything is just trapped or rigged or, what have you. He boarded up all the windows. He padlocked the doors shut. He took the door handles off of them and allowed the door hole to be a peephole and then put like one of those hand pull handles.
Yeah.
So he could pull it closed from the outside, but you couldn't open it from the inside.
Jesus Christ.
And he'd be able to, see through the holes and things like that and watch. And you had that little hole for ventilation and that was it. There was no heating or air in this house. It was absolute, it was squalor. It was rough. He reportedly locked Nilda in a wooden box from time to time.
I couldn't cope with that. I'm claustrophobic as fuck.
I'm terrified of small space. Yeah, I'm weird. I like tight spaces, like
I like being cozy, but I can't have shit over my head.
No. One really weird thing that he started doing that I feel oddly is part of the precursor to what happens in the next episode, but I don't know why. It really creeps me out. He got a mannequin.
That's never a good sign.
It's never a good sign, and it's so creepy. So he got this mannequin. He put a dark wig on it and would prop it up at the dinner table. He'd prop it up to watch TV. He'd prop it up in the corner of a room. And he would also put it in the car and drive around with it. So it would freak people out. I don't know why. I don't get it. Maybe
That's some disturbed shit.
It's very disturbed. I'm wondering if maybe it was to either desensitize the people around him or I don't know, daydream about holding somebody hostage.
That ding, ding, ding. Because if you look at Jeffrey Dahmer, who I will never cover on this podcast, by the way, because the family said no, he kept a mannequin.
Oh, really?
And it was...
Okay.
Yeah.
Practice. Well, try not to. That stuff makes me sick to my stomach.
Blow my
it
chunks.
Really, really does. Because it's creepy. It's
almost
a whole extra level of creep.
I hate saying this because it's cliched and tropey, but it's almost inhuman to me.
Is it desensitizing him? to make them less human.
Objectification.
Okay.
He wants them to be little dolls.
Yeah.
That he can control completely.
That makes sense because all of the girls that he gets are small when he gets.
I didn't mean to go all Criminal Minds. That's just kind of my take on it.
Well, we gotta go Criminal Minds.
All right, well,
it's delicious. I like to try at least to understand.
I don't want to go so far. I'm not going to diagnose nobody because I'm an idiot here in Arkansas who has no college education.
We're just attempting to think.
We're just thinking.
Yeah.
Thinking out loud.
Because he would also threaten family members with the mannequin.
Like what?
Okay, so aside from his wife and kids, because they didn't really talk much about it, but his nephew, Angel Carabala, he ended up playing music with him and would come over from time to time. He said that his uncle would say, quote, "Act up again. You'll be in the back room with the mannequin."
Fuck off. That would scare me to death.
Yeah. So I don't know what he was implying.
guess because people found it creepy, so he's going to use it as a threat against them to modify their behavior.
Right. Just to kind of creep them out? Or was he really gonna...
Or I'm going to treat you like I treat this mannequin, which is not like a person at all, and that would be very scary also.
Right.
I think it is a form of objectification of women for sure, and treating them like dolls, for real.
Apparently one time also, so he would take this doll everywhere. One time Nilda was walking through the doorway with her arms full of groceries, and Ariel Castro just jumped out of nowhere, in front of her, as she came through the threshold of the door, and with the mannequin in his arms. To scare her.
That soul would leave my body.
She falls backwards with the groceries and everything, smashed her head on the pavement.
Yes, that's terrifying.
Yeah. And probably yet another concussion. I don't know how many head injuries that she's had at this point. I really don't. I mean, same girl, but it's getting rough. So 1933, my dyslexia is bad. 1993 marked the beginning of the end for Nilda and Ariel. She finally this begins...
It's just too much.
Yeah,
you do reach that point if you live.
She starts to draw the line. Well, her kids are getting older. They're gradually growing up and getting out of the house at this point. So, and he's snowballing. He's getting progressively worse and worse. And after a particularly bad incident, Ariel threw Nilda down the stairs, and her head was cracked open from front to back.
Oh, bless.
He had thrown her down the stairs numerous times, but this time was bad. This was the worst. She was rushed to Cleveland Hospital for an operation. During the surgery, doctors found a blood clot on her brain, and it turned into a tumor and could not be removed.
Oh, poor baby.
They told her that this tumor would eventually be fatal, and there was nothing that they could do. So he killed her. He killed her. This is a very long and slow,
agonizing death
that he did. This is him killing her. And he will never get charged with this.
We don't even talk about her. I didn't even know anything.
Nobody knows about her. I didn't know about her until I really started digging. And that's when I decided to do the two-parter.
You can see his patterns.
Yes.
Begin.
1,000%.
For sure.
1,000%.
He's fucking insidious.
Yes. And the reason why he ended up escalating to kidnapping these other girls in the next episode is because of all the things that he put Nilda through first.
And he lost control of her.
Yes.
So he devised a way to never lose control again.
Yes.
And the mannequin was a dry run.
Yes.
Fuck.
Mm-hmm. You got it. So not long after this, so she gets home from the surgery, right? Literally days, maybe a week after this, yet again, he beat her again.
Piece of shit. I hate this guy.
This time their son ran outside to the neighbor's house. Her son ran out to the exact same house that girl in the next episode ran out to use the phone.
That gives me the chills.
Doesn't it?
Gives me the chills.
It's too
Imagine
soon.
being that piece of shit's neighbor. My God.
When the cops arrive, he was found a few doors down, hiding. Mm-hmm.
Like a big fucking coward.
Mm-hmm. Nilda signed a quote-unquote misdemeanor complaint against Ariel. He was arrested, but the next day, Nilda called the station requesting that all domestic violence charges be dropped.
She's
I wonder
so
why.
Terrified.
Well, because he called her from jail.
Yeah.
Or he was somehow able to get a hold of her through jail.
Through a relative, too. You never know.
He was released on bail shortly after she dropped the charges.
Because I want to point out something real quick so people understand, like, who don't go through domestic violence.
Yeah.
That these people do have enablers who are absolutely 100% aware of their behavior.
Or
and
maybe
what they're
not
doing.
aware and don't believe that they're abusive.
When I'm talking about the enablers, I'm talking about people who absolutely know they are abusing their spouse.
There's only a few people that think that he's abusive, or maybe just consider him a quote unquote wife beater when he's drunk.
Yes.
But they kind of write it off. But nobody really knows
to the depths.
Abuse.
They don't know the depths. Nobody will ever know the depths except the victim of the abuse.
Right.
Because even hearing it secondhand, y'all, it's not experiencing it.
And so many people will write off the victim, especially if they're female, as crazy.
Well, maybe if she'd been a better housekeeper. You know?
Yeah. Or maybe if she didn't.
That's the one I got. That's the one I got.
I talked back.
I did too. I was mouthy.
Yeah.
And I wasn't a very good housekeeper.
Yeah.
So no wonder he hit me.
Yeah.
He didn't hit me, but no wonder he called me names and wouldn't let me leave my house. But the thing is they have friends and they have relatives who just, especially like the people who keep paying to bail them out and keep paying for lawyers and shit. Just notice the systems in place. And this is why it makes it so hard for people to escape domestic violence. Ugh. The enablers to me are almost as evil as the person doing it.
Right. Well, and they'll believe anything that they hear too. Because a lot of times you'll hear, oh, well, she just got drunk and called the cops. She's over it now. It's a big misunderstanding, and then, behind closed doors, he's telling her all the things. I mean, he definitely threatened to kill the children and her.
Absolutely.
Numerous times. And so
she's just terrorized.
When someone is beating you and nearly killing you on a daily basis, for a fact they will and could kill your children.
Yes. And you
believe them.
Yeah, because they don't love them. You wouldn't treat your children that way, but they'll absolutely use them against you like weapons.
Absolutely.
Awful. They use the children to trap you and keep you in line.
Stay civil so you can see them kids.
And the court will help back them up.
1,000%.
Because they sure did in my case.
Me too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I had to endure it for a while, and you still got a bit to go. And I hate it for you, but
it's terrifying. But
this is why women don't leave.
Yeah.
Period.
Yeah. Yeah. In 1994, the court decided to drop all charges. So they actually waited. She dropped the charges, but they actually waited a little bit. And when the court dropped all charges against Ariel, it was because she refused to give testimony.
Yeah.
And later on, she did confess that Ariel did threaten to kill the children and her if she testified.
Absolutely.
So aside from the doctors and a few people that came in contact with Nilda during the distress, most people had no idea what Ariel was capable of. Sure, like the mannequin thing was weird. It was kind of strange. The house was a little strange. Yeah, like the boarded up windows, that's a little strange, but we can't really say for sure. His family said that he seemed normal. I think he really projected a certain image to his family. His family did not see his wife and kids very much at all. They thought
that's part of it is the isolation, so people can't see how much you're abusing your children and your spouse.
They really did think that he was just some fun-loving guy that liked to play the bass and have a good time. They really, really did. And he would be seen at like family barbecues. He would be seen at like block parties and neighborhood parties and shit like that. He was the friendly neighbor. His kids were friends with other kids in the area. He was always seen as that like smiling guy that like waved whenever he got mail. You know what I mean? Like very few people had suspicions.
Narcissistic abusers are superficially charming.
Very, very, very. Yeah. And they play it up real hard. Nilda's family didn't even know the extent of abuse. They knew something wasn't right though. The neighbor across the street, obviously, she knew that there was abuse in the household. But you tend to just mind your own business, like I said. In 1996, after yet another particularly bad attack, this was reportedly the last physical attack that Nilda would go through. Nilda ran out of the house with her child in her arms, crying and running to the exact same neighbors for safety, and called for police. She was rushed to the ER, and the security officer that was there at the hospital, who kind of helped roll her in, he noticed her badly beaten and bruised yet again, and he came to check in on her, and he saw her condition. He said, quote, "You've been here several times. If you don't leave him, the next time you come in, you'll be going to the basement."
The morgue.
The morgue. He offered her help. He asked her if she would take that help. I like how he separated those two statements.
Yes, me too.
He was like, I would like to help you. Would you like to accept that help?
That's the way to ask, y'all.
He's a very kind man. I'm like really choking up because
no one ever did that for me, but I would have really appreciated it.
And he's just such a good man. What Ariel does to him is so bad. It's just so bad. He's another victim of Ariel Castro that nobody will talk about. God, he was such a good man. She did think about it for a while. She had to process it. She's in the hospital, but clearly in survival mode, trying to just strategize. He let her think about it. He let her have her moment. And he told her, quote, "It's not too hard of a choice. You can either be happy and alive or dead."
Yeah.
So she agreed. The children were at her parents' house while she was in the hospital, and when she got out, they all moved in with her new hero, the security guard, Fernando Colon, and he is just a wonderful man. He loved her so much. He just wanted to protect her and the kids, and they were so happy together. The kids really did love him. They were finally safe. He could even tell, he said that those kids were really, like, I'm going to say it the way that he said it, but I want you to understand he meant more than that. He said that the kids were really messed up because of all of the abuse that they had suffered and seen. He just knew that they needed a lot of love and a lot of therapy.
Even witnessing, y'all, even witnessing domestic violence, and I'm not talking about just hitting, yelling too.
Especially witnessing, honestly.
Will damage your brain.
Honestly, seeing somebody else get hurt will a lot of times damage you more than you getting hurt.
No, I'm just saying it is scientific fact that witnessing domestic violence as a child will delay development and cause brain damage.
Yes,
period.
It will. Mm-hmm. Yes, it will. Absolutely.
So if you stay in for the kids, you're not doing them any favors.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. But understand that we understand that the system is so flawed that it's like, I get it. Where are you going to let them get abused?
I'll talk about what you can. I'm going to talk about what you can do at the end of the episode.
Yeah, it does feel helpless a lot of times. And
I felt completely helpless, so I get it.
But Fernando really wanted to be the best stepdad that he could for those kids. And he really wanted to see Nilda live a long and happy life, comfortable and not scared anymore. Yeah. He really wanted to be that for them. But obviously, Ariel hated this.
Oh, yeah.
He'd call and call and call, bribing Nilda with money and gifts, begging her to come back to him. Fernando said that when it got out of hand, he would take the phone and he would tell him to stop calling, which only infuriated Ariel that much more. Nilda and Fernando were engaged in 1998, just before their son Ryan was born. The more the happy family grew, the angrier Ariel got. With the house to himself, Ariel began modifying the house even more. He added chain link fence, barbed wire to all the windows, and an elaborate alarm system, which he made from random alarm clocks and like spliced wires, and it was all like, it was a bunch of like dangling
sounds like
alarm
some Home Alone
clocks.
shit.
It was some serious, it was legitimate Home Alone shit. It was, I'll show pictures. It's really strange how he rigged it all up, but he basically kept the front door booby trapped and would always enter the home through the back door. So like once Nilda and the kids left,
he's really spiraling into some kind of paranoia.
He really, really did. He didn't let anybody else in that house, really. If they did, they didn't stay long. And over the next few years, he would fixate on how he was going to replace Nilda.
Yeah.
First, he started to gravitate his attention towards his daughters as they got older and turned into teenagers, and then their friends.
Jesus.
I don't know how much of that attention, because nobody will come forward with any details. I don't need any details. But I know that he was paying more attention to his teenage daughters. He was giving them a lot of gifts, a lot of phone calls, trying to take them out.
Inappropriately.
Yes.
That's what you're getting at.
And he would set his sights on their friends, like Emily's friend Michelle in 2002, or her friend Amanda in 2003, or Arlene's friend Gina in 2004. Yeah. Gina was actually invited to Fernando Colon's house for a sleepover with Arlene when she went missing. She was on her way to Fernando Colon's house. This is all part of him also ruining their life as well.
Yeah, it's about revenge.
Yes. Fernando Colon was questioned by the FBI, and he told them that they should be looking at Ariel Castro instead, and they never did. Fernando said that he witnessed Ariel bullying his daughters, and then he would offer them money and cars and cell phones and all kinds of things to sort of pamper them.
And buy their silence.
Mm-hmm, absolutely. Mm-hmm. And just like he used to do to Nilda as well, it was a very similar pattern.
Mm-hmm.
When he realized he couldn't have either of them, the kids or Nilda, Ariel retaliated. Nilda and Fernando had plans to move the family to Miami, Florida, because Fernando, he had worked his way up as security guard to security manager of the hospital, and then he was going to move up to working in law enforcement. And this was part of his way of, getting that raise to get that income so
he could take care of his family.
Take care of his family, yes.
Yeah.
And give them a better life. And moving them to Miami, Florida was kind of the last straw for Ariel. Ariel freaked the fuck out and completely ruined everything for them. All of a sudden, Fernando Colon was arrested. He was charged with 28 counts of rape, kidnapping, and sexual offenses. This man has never hurt anyone in his life. This is what Ariel Castro was doing currently at this time.
Yeah.
At this time in 2004, he has 3 girls, kidnapped and held hostage in his room. And
he's making these accusations.
He threw all of those accusations on the most innocent man. It's just devastating. Fernando was in shock. And when they read him the charges, he was in complete disbelief. He had never been in trouble ever. For anything, ever. He's always walked the line and done the right thing. He had a perfectly clean record. He was a good man and a good citizen, and he was doing good things. He didn't deserve this. He said, quote, "All I'd ever done was try and try for a better life and career for Nilda and the kids. Now I was accused of being a child molester. It was just horrible, and it destroyed my life. Nilda didn't believe it, but we thought it was best if I moved out him. While this was going on, he said, I lost my trust with people. Everyone who knew me and cared about me and looked to me for advice became distrustful."
So terrible. Just complete character assassination.
Yeah.
Which was the idea.
That's a really good term. I've never heard that term before.
Oh, yes. It's a good term.
It's a very appropriate term, too. He pled not guilty, but was suspended from his job as a security supervisor until after the trial. Emily and Arlene recanted their evidence against him. Apparently, they had placed evidence against him, obviously believed to have been by their father. Their father
Yes.
made them do it. He has forced them to, tell people that he had nothing to do with that. But you know how manipulative he is.
Yeah.
Nilda was forced to take out a restraining order against Ariel after he threatened to kill her if she didn't get the girls into court to testify. For 3 nights during the trial in 2005, Emily and Arlene stayed at Ariel Castro's house. While those 3 girls were held captive, their friends, Emily and Arlene, were there staying in the house for 3 days and had no idea. They had no idea that they were there. Ariel's son, Anthony, who, by the way, at this time was a journalist in Indiana, testified in trial against his father and the abuse that he witnessed against his mother growing up. Nilda gave evidence for Fernando, but Ariel Castro denied ever touching Nilda and denied trying to get his daughters to testify against Fernando. And after 2 days of conflicting testimony, the jury cleared Fernando Colon of all but 4 charges.
You shouldn't have none.
He was sentenced to 5 years community supervision and was placed on a sex offender registry.
That's so awful. He better be off that goddamn registry.
He lost everything. He lost everything.
I hate that.
All of his friends, his entire family. He lost the love of his life. In an interview, he called himself, quote, the forgotten victim of Ariel Castro. And yeah, I'd have to agree. After the sentencing, Nilda left him and moved to Indiana to be closer to her son, bringing with her their son they had together, Ryan. Though they still remained friends, the trial was basically the end of their relationship. In 2007, Emily Castro, their daughter, slashed her 11-month-old daughter's throat.
Oh, God.
Seemingly out of nowhere.
Oh, it's ain't out of nowhere.
She was pregnant during the trial, by the way. And so shortly after the trial is when it happened. Luckily, the baby survived, but Emily was sentenced to 25 years in prison for attempted murder.
Was that her father's baby?
I don't know.
They should DNA test that baby.
I know.
It's just a system
But
just
none of the
failing
girls,
everyone in this.
none of the girls have ever come forward about anything, so we can't say
They're
yes
just
or no.
traumatized.
But either way, if the best possible outcome were to be the truth, they would still be extremely traumatized.
Yeah,
there's no
nothing.
good.
Yeah, there's nothing. That
There's no good way to come out of
erase
this.
any of that.
Right. Sadly, Nilda's life didn't get any better after the trial either. Her lover was taken from her. Her daughter went to prison, and her brain tumor was growing. She died in 2012 at the age of 48. It's officially classified as an accidental opiate overdose, but it was the cancer that killed her. It was the tumor, and that tumor was because of Ariel Castro. Ariel Castro killed her.
Absolutely.
1,000%. And Grimilda, Nilda, just a beautiful woman. I just, like, inside and out. And I hate that saying inside and out because I take it too literally, but she really was. She was a good person. She did her best for her children, and she tried like hell to protect them.
Well, and even if she wasn't, even if she was the biggest piece of shit on earth, she didn't deserve to be treated that way. So now, let's say you're listening to this.
Yeah.
And it has punched you in the guts because you are in a domestic violence situation. And let's be clear on what I mean by a domestic violence situation. I do not mean just hitting, choking, pushing, restraining you. I mean words of violence too. Are you being called names, belittled, gaslit? He's always saying, oh, you're crazy. No, I didn't say that right after he said something and
Threats.
you heard it. Threats.
Slamming doors.
You know what it means when they slam a door? That means they would like to hit you. Mm-hmm. They are barely showing
they
restraint.
want to do in your face.
Yes. So, and you may say, well, hey, he doesn't hit me. Let me tell you this. I said that for 13 years, and then I found myself with his hands around my throat, seeing stars and almost passing out. And if my roommate hadn't barged in, I would be dead. Yeah. And he later went to jail for choking his girlfriend out. Mm-hmm. So that doesn't mean he won't. It doesn't mean she won't. Let's be clear. Doesn't matter the gender of people involved. Mm-hmm. Okay. So what do? You leave, not tomorrow, not later. The minute it's safe, you leave. Even if you have literally nowhere to go, you grab up those babies, or if it's just you, you grab yourself. Mm-hmm. You fit what you can carry with you, and you get out. Things can be replaced. Right. A life can be started over. But if you stay, you will die. And if you don't die, your soul will. And those babies will then learn that it's okay to put up with it.
Yes.
and then it will happen to them.
Yes.
It is up to you to break the cycle of abuse, and it isn't easy. And if you need help, please contact me. You can find me on Facebook. You can find me on Instagram. You can join our Discord and private message me there. I will leave links to my contact information below. I will help you find resources in your area. And I don't care if I get 50 replies. I will reply to each one.
And then if you don't feel comfortable quite yet, we do have links to domestic violence outreach on our Instagram.
Yes. So I will point you.
Under our resources.
It's under resources tab on our Instagram. I will also link some domestic violence charities. Please donate. It helps people escape these situations. The way we end the cycle of abuse for ourselves and our children is we make the tough choices. And sometimes that means starting over with nothing. I had $20 in the house and 3 kids under 6. So I get it. I didn't have anything. I mean, if it wasn't for my grandpa buying me that house, I'd have been homeless too. But that doesn't matter because you're alive. And if you're alive, things can always improve.
There are a lot of interesting miracles that happen, and I really hate using the word miracles, but I've seen it time and time again. I've hit rock bottom and then kept digging.
And then the good stuff. And then the good stuff start happening.
Yes. You just gotta.
Stars will align for you, baby.
For yourself.
Stars will align for you, baby, if you make the rough choices. I promise you, it will get better.
Yes.
In addition, get that restraining order.
Yes, it helps file those orders.
It won't keep them from you, and the police don't do shit. But when it comes down to
a record trail,
leave a trail. It's really important.
Take pictures. And that's something I never did.
I'll tell you another thing, because it got to the point where I hated my abuser. Like, he could have spontaneously combusted, and I probably would have had a little party.
I feel that way.
But I understand if you don't, because I didn't always.
Yeah.
And if you're sitting there, but I love them, my love will fix them. No, it won't. They're irrevocably broken. You would never do it. You, with all the love in there, would never do it.
Yeah.
So you got to ask yourself, if they're doing this to me, then they can't love me. They literally can't love you. And I don't care what they say. You don't hurt the people you love like that.
That's right.
Look, we can all be abusive in situations. But you know what I mean by abuser. You sit there, you already know the difference. Get out. I know that it's hard. I did it.
Right.
Willow knows that it's hard. She did it. You need to get out.
And if you're not going through something like this, but you know somebody that is,
help them. Like the Fernando.
Go drive to their house. Go pick them
and
up.
And say, hey, I can help you.
Let them crash on your couch.
You say, hey, I can help you.
Yeah.
Do you want my help?
Yes. Allow them the time to answer both.
They don't get
questions.
a fucking choice, y'all. Not ever. You don't. When you're in this situation, all your choices and agency is removed, and that is the gift. Is you give it back.
Yeah, because
give them choices.
It feels so good to be liberated like that.
And if they tell you no, say, hey, okay, that is your choice. I love you. I am here.
The offer still stands.
And you be the safe space they go if they need one.
Yes.
So that's what we do to end the cycles of abuse. That is what reduces crime. It reduces poverty. It reduces addiction.
Yes.
And it's doing the little good like this that gets it done. And sometimes the little good is a very big, scary
decision. And even if it's just a couple days, when I was homeless, a lot of times I would stay, here for a couple days, here for a couple days, here for a couple days.
I done it.
You skip like a stone, But yeah, just being a safe place for somebody will change their whole life.
And it ain't even about being strong, y'all. I was not strong at the time.
No.
I wasn't.
No.
That came out of the last vestiges of my dust of myself.
Broken and
just
torn apart, yeah.
No self-esteem.
No.
But, as much as I thought I may have deserved it, you don't, by the way. You never deserve it. I don't care if you hit his dog with your car on accident. You don't deserve it. But I knew them kids didn't deserve to see it. And they don't. And you're not staying together is not for their benefit. If you could ask them and they could understand, they would say, please leave. They love you. They don't want to see you hurt. And they're seeing it more than your mom, more than the abuser's mom. So do it for them and do it for yourself. Do it for yourself. Yeah. So if you need some help, if you even want to just vent about it, please reach out. Because we want you to be safe and happy. That's what you deserve.
Right.
Well, I don't like doing business time on the ends of such like heavy episodes, but we'll have part 2 up on Friday. But here's what I would like to do is please go to our Patreon if you would like to look at show notes and pictures for the case. Yes. We can't always put these on regular social media. We will get bandinated and zucked into the shadow realm. So these will be on a public posts on Patreon, which means they're not behind a paywall. You don't have to be a patron to look at them. Right. If you want to be a patron, please explore our tiers. We have a little something for everyone.
They're fun.
They are fun. Also, Discord, great community there, is a safe space,
Very
not behind
safe.
a paywall. Come here. Nobody will judge you.
The political climate right now is scary as hell,
Scary, y'all.
And we have really been banding together.
Yes, we have.
It feels like we're going through a storm or something. And
We're just laying low, man, helping each other.
Hunkering down.
Look, we're all about helping each other, and I feel like, you know, it's got some solidarity.
Solidarity.
That's right.
Oh, I want that on a T-shirt.
Done.
I stand in solidarity.
That's right.
All right.
So we'll help each other. So we'll help you
Yeah.
too. So come hang out in our Discord. Show me your cats.
Y'all
Tell
listeners
me
are just so good to us.
We love you. Yes, thank
My
you very
goodness.
much. And if you appreciate today's emotional labor and my continued emotional labor in the pursuit of justice, you are always free to send me a little love on coffee.
I was about to say we are fueled by caffeine, and if
the coffee link is in our link tree. It's just where it's like my tip jar. If you're like, thank you for the emotional labor, Lillian's, here is some dollars.
Yeah.
Lillian's and Willow.
Yeah, I would really like to go out for coffee with my best friend now that I'm not a plague rat and
That's
I can
right.
venture out without spreading the disease.
Well, guess who has like enough for 2 coffees in the little fund? It's me, and I'm going to take you in my new car. New to me car.
It's a new car.
It's lovely. All right. If all you guys can do to support this podcast is listen, we appreciate each and every one of you, and we love you very much, and we will see you next time. Find us on your social media platform of choice. Linktree/Cruelty has all of the links. Check out our Patreon for exclusive episodes, merch, ad-free episodes, live ghost hunts, and much more. Please be sure to subscribe. New episodes are uploaded weekly. Thank you so much. See you next time. Music and production by Willie B.